The winter deepened as my wife, son, and I moved into our new place in Port Blossom. The wind off the Pacific carried the scent of salt and pine. I hadn't even made it from the car to the lobby before I ran straight into my aunt's family. They stared at me, their expressions a complicated mess. Aunt Carol spoke first, her voice laced with the old, familiar judgment. She wanted to know how long I planned on hiding out on the coast, when I was finally going to get over it and go back home to Denver to have a real talk with Audrey Thorne, the heir to the Thorne Corporation. Audrey, my college girlfriend, my first love. 5 years ago, we were supposed to get married. Then on my birthday, everything changed. In the dim light of a downtown rooftop bar, she smashed the gift I'd spent weeks making for her, right in front of my face, before walking out with Julian Reed, her roommate's younger brother. I was so furious I broke up with her on the spot, packed a single bag, and fled to this small, windswept city by the sea. Now, seeing my aunt again, all that history hung in the air between us. She sighed dramatically. Audrey never really got over you, you know. Even on the day she got engaged to Julian, she said that if you just came back, she'd start all over again with you. Start all over? A bitter smile touched my lips. Aunt Carol, I said, my voice calm. I got married 3 years ago. My son is 2. Audrey probably thought I was still holding some kind of grudge, playing a long game. She had no idea I'd already turned the page and started a whole new book. The news of my marriage had never made it back to Denver. So when I ran into my aunt here in Port Blossom, she was completely in the dark. A light snow was beginning to fall, dusting the streets in white. I was walking back from the corner store, an umbrella in one hand and a remote control monster truck for my son in the other, when I passed the boardwalk. I saw them from a distance, my Aunt Carol and my cousin, Chloe, standing there, staring at me with expressions of pure shock. 5 years, and the first words out of my aunt's mouth were an accusation. Leo, where have you been hiding all these years? Not a word, not even a single phone call. I gave her a cool look, my face a frozen mask. There was no warmth of a long-awaited reunion in me. They, on the other hand, looked like they just struck gold. Leo, you're finally here, Chloe said, practically bouncing on her feet. Audrey has been looking for you for years. You have to come back with us. Aunt Carol nodded eagerly. She's right, Leo. You have no idea. Audrey's running the family business now. She's a major player in Denver. If you two got back together, you'd be marrying into one of the most powerful families in the state. We could all benefit from that, don't you think? Aunt Carol's eyes gleamed, and Chloe had a dreamy look on her face, already imagining the perks of association. The irony was laughable. These were the same relatives who couldn't be bothered with me after my parents died. They cut off all contact, treating me like a stranger. Now that I might have some value to them again, they were acting like long-lost family. I let out a short, cold laugh, shattering their fantasy. Audrey and I are done. It was over a long time ago. I said her name, a name that had been collecting dust in a corner of my mind, with the same flat tone I'd used to comment on the weather, as if she were just some person I used to know. Aunt Carol and Chloe froze, studying me with strange, disbelieving eyes. They couldn't imagine I'd moved on so completely. After all, my obsession with Audrey Thorne had been legendary across campus. They used to whisper behind my back that the Vance kid, with no parents to guide him, was just a reckless hothead, always stirring up trouble. In school, Audrey and I were inseparable. I was a loud, confident kid in high school, and I never gave a damn about the gossip. From the moment we made it official freshman year of college, I was convinced she was the one. I was always with her, dragging her to basketball games, staying up all night helping her prep for debate tournaments. From the day we met at 17 until that day when I was 21, we were rarely apart. If things hadn't gone sideways, we would have been engaged at 25. But that summer, Julian Reed, her roommate's little brother, came to stay with her family. Julian was quiet, polite, the perfect gentleman in everyone's eyes. Standing next to me, he looked like the one who belonged by her side. I was too wild, too rough around the edges. I was exactly what a guy my age should be, just not what a guy by her side should be. He's an orphan, runs wild. How can he compare to a stable, well-raised boy like Julian? Those whispers got to me. I was angry and ashamed. I needed to ask Audrey what she thought, if she also saw me as not good enough. But when I got to the rooftop bar, where we were supposed to meet, Julian was there too. He smiled that gentle smile of his. Leo, I was bored this summer, so Audrey brought me out. You don't mind, do you? Normally, I wouldn't have. But it was my birthday. Audrey had promised we'd celebrate, just the two of us. Instead, she took the gift I'd made for her, a wooden ring I'd carved and polished myself, and casually handed it to Julian to try on. I stared at that ring on Julian's finger, thinking of the late nights I'd spent sanding it smooth, and my heart just exploded. Audrey, what the hell is this? The bar was loud, the sea breeze mixing with the smell of booze. My sudden anger startled her. She shot a look at Julian, then pulled me outside onto the terrace. "He's just here for the summer. I'm showing him around," she said in a low voice. "Why are you overreacting?" I didn't know why. Maybe it was hearing everyone praise Julian while putting me down. Maybe it was seeing my ring on his hand. I grabbed her sleeve, my voice tight. "Then why did you give him the ring I made for you?" Audrey hesitated, a flicker of panic in her eyes. "I just let him try it on for fun." I scoffed. "For fun? Why don't you just buy him a new one?" "It was a gift from you," she said. "It's not like I was actually giving it to him." That calmed me down just a little. I was still angry, but I pressed on. "So you think I'm not good enough too?" "What are you talking about?" "That I'm not mature enough, not stable enough." She paused, then said quietly, "You could be a little much sometimes." I glared at her and gave her a light shove on the shoulder. It wasn't hard, and she didn't react, but Julian's face flushed. He looked so damn innocent. He rushed over, grabbing Audrey's arm, his voice laced with pathetic drama. "Audrey, are you okay? It's all my fault. I made Leo mad. If he's going to be angry at someone, it should be me. Don't let him take it out on you." He stood between us, apologizing loudly, drawing stares from other patrons. It was a perfect little soap opera scene. I wanted to tell him to cut the act, but he just got louder. Finally, Audrey asked a waiter to show him to a table to cool off, but Julian clung to her hand, refusing to let go. She turned to me, exasperated. "Leo, let's just call it a night. Julian just got back to the States. He's still adjusting. I need to get him settled." And just like that, my birthday party, the one I'd been looking forward to for weeks, was over before I'd even had a single drink. After that night, Audrey's free time was no longer mine. Julian was always there, hovering at her side. When I tried to see her alone, I had to do it in secret, like we were sneaking around, terrified Julian might find out. It was insane. I was the boyfriend, but suddenly I felt like the other man. My frustration boiled over in a coffee shop by the marina. "Don't you feel like we're having an affair?" I blurted out. Audrey, who was holding a cappuccino, flinched, nearly spilling foam everywhere. A faint blush colored her cheeks. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "What are you talking about?" I stared at her. "I'm not talking nonsense. According to our plan, I should have proposed to you last year. Now I have to sneak around like a thief just to see you. Tell me, if I asked you to marry me right now, would you say yes?" The question hung in the air, a harsh reality check. She sighed, reaching out to run her fingers through my hair, pulling me closer. After a moment of thought, she said, "Since it bothers you this much, I'll talk to my family about us. Once it's settled with them, you won't have to worry about Julian anymore." A small smile played on her lips as she pulled a small bronze ring from her pocket and handed it to me. A makeup gift for my ruined birthday. I took it and wore it every day, my heart filled with the hope of finally marrying her. But that day never came. That October, my next-door neighbor, the closest thing I had to a big brother, died in an accident. My own family, my aunt, had kept their distance since my parents passed. During holidays, my house was an empty shell. He was the only one who would come over just to talk. His death left a crater in my life. On the day of the memorial service, I was holed up in my cramped apartment, drowning in a tide of loneliness. I had a sudden, desperate need to see Audrey. I threw on a jacket and drove straight to her luxury condo. I found her hugging Julian, who was fresh out of the shower with nothing but a towel wrapped around his waist. She was patting his shoulder, comforting him softly. "It's okay, Julian, it's okay." The look of pure tenderness in Audrey's eyes was like a knife to the chest. I froze, my gaze falling on the shattered pieces of a ceramic mug on the floor by the coffee table. It was the birthday gift I'd stayed up all night to fire for her, now lying in ruins, a silent, mocking testament to my failure. Rage and pain churned inside me. I walked forward and knelt to pick up the pieces. Only then did Audrey notice me. She let go of Julian and turned. "Leo, what are you doing here?" I ignored her, focusing on the shards. She reached for my arm. The mug slipped and fell just now. Julian almost got burned. She tried to placate me. "Don't worry about this one. I'll get you a new one, okay?" I kept my eyes down and shook her hand off. Without a word, I turned and ran out of the apartment. Audrey chased after me, catching up to me by the fountain in the building's courtyard. She stared at my face. "Leo, what is wrong with you?" I glared back, the fire in my gut finally erupting. I could ignore the whispers of strangers, but not Audrey. Her every move, every glance, had the power to throw my world off its axis. But there she was, standing there like she'd done nothing wrong. I fought the urge to scream, staring into her panicked eyes as I asked in a low voice, "Audrey, do you even care about me?" She flinched, her eyes darting away as the tips of her ears turned red. "Why are you asking that? Do you care about me?" I needed to hear it. The answer would decide everything. But she dodged the question. There are people watching, Leo. Let's talk about this back inside. Back inside? No. We're settling this right here, right now. Why could she be so gentle with Julian, but couldn't offer me a single comforting word? A bitter ache spread through my chest. I opened my arms, wanted to pull her into a hug, to numb myself with her presence. But she placed her hands on my shoulders, stopping me. Her voice was firm. Not in public, Leo. Don't do this. Before she could finish, Julian's voice cut in. Audrey. He came running over, now fully dressed, and naturally looped his arm through hers. The sight was like a bucket of ice water to the face. I let out a cold, humorless laugh. We have to protect our image. Not like your little brother here, who can just hug you right after shower without worrying what people might say. Leo Vance. Audrey's voice was sharp with shock and anger. A few passers-by started murmuring, their curiosity piqued by my accusation. Julian swayed, his face turning red again, looking for all the world like a blushing virgin. Audrey's face was a thundercloud. She grabbed my wrist, her grip like iron. Stop it. It was just a mug, I'll replace it. Don't drag Julian into this. Her tone was a clear warning, her fingers digging into my skin. But the pain in my heart was sharper. Seeing her protect him like that, a twisted smile formed on my face. Am I making things up? Or do you too have a guilty conscience? I saw him with my own eyes. Crack. The sharp sound cut me off. I stood there, stunned. The stinging heat on my cheek left my mind completely blank. We'd been together for years, and we'd had our share of fights. But for her to raise a hand to me for someone else, that changed everything. A flicker of triumph crossed Julian's eyes before he masked it, murmuring, Audrey, don't. He was playing the peacemaker, offering me his condescending pity. Audrey looked at him, her expression softening instantly. Then she took his arm and led him away, as if to say I wasn't even worthy of his sympathy. I watched their backs recede until they vanished from sight. Only then did tears blur the world around me. Starting that day, the rumors flew through our group chats. Everyone said Audrey Thorne had finally dumped me for good, that I was finished. There was no more talk of an engagement from the Thorne Corporation. My heart felt like cold ash. I opened my phone and deleted the photo of us on the college athletic field. Then I sent her one last text, telling her we were done, once and for all. After that, I packed my bags, left my hometown, and came to this small city shrouded in sea fog. I hadn't set foot in Denver for years. Not until today, when seeing my aunt brought it all rushing back. But now, I was like a rock on the shore, unmoved by the tide. It was all meaningless. Aunt Carol watched me for a long moment, then forced a smile. Leo, you're still angry at Audrey, aren't you? I heard about what happened. It was just a silly fight. You were young. Surely you can let it go by now. I offered a slight smile of my own. I let it go a long time ago. The Audrey who was once my whole world had gotten engaged to Julian a year after I left. And me? I now had a wife and a son. We were strangers. Seeing my calm expression, my aunt nodded. It's good that you moved on. She paused, then added, but Audrey still has a place for you in her heart. On the day she got engaged to Julian, she said it herself. If he came back to her, she'd be willing to start over. Start over? On the day of her engagement to another man? I almost felt sorry for Julian. I got married 3 years ago. My son is 2 years old. Are you suggesting I drag my family back to Denver to play house with Audrey Thorne? What? You're married? Chloe's eyes went wide with disbelief. Aunt Carol looked like she'd been struck by lightning. But you were never able to get over Audrey. How could you? The news was so sudden it left them speechless. I just said, come on, I'll introduce you to Noah. Noah's my son. When we got back to the apartment, he was flying a kite in the small park out front. Seeing my aunt and cousin, he tilted his head. Are you here to see Mommy? I shook my head. No, buddy. This is your great Aunt Carol and your cousin, Chloe. Hi, great Aunt Carol. Hi, Cousin Chloe, Noah said in his bright, clear voice. My aunt just stared. This is really your son. They looked completely lost until they saw him with their own eyes. Only then did the reality sink in. I smiled, ruffling Noah's hair. Back inside, I pulled an old wooden box from the back of a closet and handed it to Chloe. Do me a favor and give this to Audrey when you get back. What is it? She asked, curious. Just some old things, I said evenly. When I'd left Denver, I'd angrily deleted our photos, but I could never bring myself to throw away the little trinkets she'd given me. In the box was an antique bronze lapel pin we'd picked out together in college. She'd given it to me on her 19th birthday to celebrate the second anniversary of the day we met. Now, years later, she had her life and I had mine. It was time for the pin to go back to its owner. My face was unreadable. Chloe, sensing she shouldn't press, just nodded awkwardly. Should I? Tell her you're married, too? I paused for a second. She can know or not. It doesn't matter to me. Seeing what was in the box would tell her everything she needed to know. She and I were finished. There were no ties left to sever. Aunt Carol sighed, her face a mask of regret, as if she were watching a ship full of treasure sink to the bottom of the ocean. She couldn't help but ask, Leo, are you really over her? All those years, all that history, could I really just let it go? I nodded. I have everything I need. Maybe at first, leaving had been about spiting Audrey, but marrying my wife? That was a choice I made with my whole heart. My aunt had nothing more to say. She and Chloe left with the box. About 2 weeks later, the news trickled back to me. Chloe sent me a text, saying she'd given the box to Audrey at her birthday party. When Audrey opened it and saw what was inside, she froze, her eyes turning red. She asked Chloe where I was. Chloe told her the truth. He's married now. That one short sentence apparently made the great Audrey Thorne stumble, her face turning pale as a sheet as she pressed a hand to her chest and let out a few ragged coughs. I never expected her to react so violently, and I certainly never expected her to come to Port Blossom herself. The snow was coming down hard that day when a lone figure appeared below our apartment building, looking as desolate as an abandoned lighthouse on the coast. Noah pushed open the lobby door and called up to me. Daddy, someone's here for you. Who is it? I asked, confused. I leaned out the door, and my gaze collided with a pair of achingly familiar eyes. Audrey stood there, holding an umbrella, her head lowered to look at Noah. When she saw me, she froze. Time seemed to warp and fold in on itself. She looked more mature than she had in college, more poised, but her eyes were still as clear and deep as the ocean. Her lips moved, her voice a near whisper. It's been a long time, Leo. I frowned, knowing this was unavoidable. I met her gaze head-on. Ms. Thorne, an old love, reunited. She still used my first name. All I had for her was a cold, formal title. A flicker of pain crossed her face. She looked down at Noah, murmuring, Is this your son? Noah, unnerved by her intense stare, hid behind my legs. I picked him up, pretending not to hear the tremor in her voice. He is. Snowflakes collected on the edge of her umbrella. Audrey's face was as white as the snow itself, almost blending into the winter landscape. For a second, she looked completely lost. Finally, she managed to ask why. There's no why, I said calmly. Getting married, having a kid. It's a normal part of life. Normal, she repeated, a storm of emotion churning in her eyes. She forced a bitter smile. Noah peeked out from my shoulder. Who are you, lady? Audrey stared at him, her eyes suddenly red-rimmed. I'm an old friend of your daddy's. Old friend. Noah didn't understand. It means someone I knew a long, long time ago, I explained. Oh, he looked from her to me, his big eyes full of confusion, not understanding why this grown-up looked like she was about to cry. Leo. Audrey started to say something else, but I cut her off. You should go. She froze, watching as I turned with Noah in my arms and headed back inside. The snow was falling harder now, and I had no intention of inviting her in. She stood there in the storm for a long time, not moving. By the time the snow finally stopped, she was still there, her face drained of all color from the cold. I sighed. Not wanting to find a frozen body on my doorstep in the morning, I opened the door again. What is it you really want? Her eyes locked onto mine, her voice hoarse. Leo, do you still hate me? For hitting you that day? Dredging up the past. I frowned. That's over and done with. But I'm not over it, she said. All these years, I've never forgotten. She looked up, and under the umbrella, those eyes that had once captivated me were still just as deep. But now, they held no power over me. Audrey stared at my placid face, a note of desperation in her voice. What will it take for you to forgive me? Well, let's do it. She suddenly grabbed my hand and, with a sharp movement, used it to slap her own face. The sound was crisp and loud in the quiet air. A red mark instantly bloomed on her pale cheek, and even my own palm tingled from the impact. But I felt nothing. I just spoke 2 cold words. Let go. She wouldn't, her eyes fixed on mine, desperately searching for some flicker of the old feeling, some ripple of concern. I let out a sharp, mocking laugh. You're hurting me. She flinched, and her hand finally fell away. The reality seemed to crash down on her. I was never going to feel anything for her again. You shouldn't have come here, I said flatly. The day you got engaged to Julian, it was over between us. Or were you actually expecting me to come crawling back to you? Her eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. Why not? We were together since high school. We were supposed to grow old together. He doesn't belong to you anymore. A warm, gentle voice came from behind me. A woman with a camera bag slung over her shoulder walked up, a soft smile on her face. "Leo, I'm home." The sight of her transformed me. A real smile broke across my face as I rushed forward and wrapped her in a hug, lifting her off the ground. Clara, even as a husband and a father, I hadn't lost that impulsive part of myself. I wasn't like those guys who pretend to be reserved and stoic to seem mature. I gave all of my affection, all of myself, to the people I loved. Thankfully, Clara was my wife. She never thought I was reckless, and she never pushed me away. She just wrapped her arms around my neck, her smile gentle. "What are you doing home so early?" I murmured against her shoulder. "The photo shoot wrapped ahead of schedule," Clara said. "The client loved the shots, so I came right back." She unzipped her bag and pulled out a paper sack that held 2 warm cinnamon rolls. "Got these for you and Noah. They're still warm." Then, she looked up at Audrey. The 2 women's eyes met, and the air crackled with a silent, tense appraisal. It was Clara who broke the silence, her smile never wavering. "You must be Ms. Thorne." Audrey drew herself up, her posture radiating the authority she'd honed in the corporate world, though the red handprint on her cheek spoiled the effect. She stared at Clara, her voice dripping with disdain. "And yours, wife? You're nothing special. That's the best a corporate shark can do." Clara turned to me, her voice laced with a playful, wounded tone. "Leo, am I nothing special?" I immediately cupped her face in my hands. "What? Of course not. Clara Hayes is the best photographer in Port Blossom. Your work is brilliant. You have an incredible eye, and you're gorgeous. Who cares what anyone else says?" I shot a glare at Audrey, who looked like she'd just been mortally wounded. "Leo, back in Denver, I would have defended her against anyone. I'd never once dismissed her like that in front of someone else." Audrey's face went pale, a flash of pure jealousy in her eyes as she looked at Clara. I stepped forward and sighed. "Thank you for coming all this way. Let's all just be decent about this. You should go. There's no future for us." With that, Clara and I turned to go inside. Audrey panicked, planting a hand on the doorframe to stop it from closing. "Wait, let me just say one more thing. There's so much I never told you." I took a deep breath, my patience worn to a thread. "What else is there to say?" She met my icy gaze, her own eyes trembling, but the words wouldn't come. She knew me. She knew that at this point, nothing she could say would make a difference. Finally, her hand dropped. She stood there, her shoulders slumped in defeat. The door closed, shutting out her lonely figure. Clara gently brushed the snowflakes from my shoulders. "It's okay," she said softly. I looked at her and sighed. I can't believe she followed me here. 5 years ago, when I left Denver, she had been so disappointed in me that she hadn't said a single word to stop me. Then she got engaged to Julian. I thought she'd forgotten I ever existed. Why show up now, looking so broken? I couldn't ignore the shattered look in her eyes when she saw Noah. Did she really think she'd been saving herself for me all these years? On what grounds? A wave of irritation washed over me. I just wanted this toxic connection between me and Audrey to be severed, for good. But I was thinking too simply. Now that she knew where I lived, she started sending things. Expensive belts, cufflinks, watches, designer jackets, collectible models, top-of-the-line graphics cards, noise-canceling headphones, high-end fishing gear. Anything a man might conceivably want, she sent it. Everything, of course, except photography equipment. I sent it all back, but she wouldn't give up. One day, when Clara was out on a shoot, she showed up again. This time I was smart enough not to open the door, but she climbed up the maintenance ladder on the side of the building. I had to laugh. The CEO of the Thorne Corporation, climbing up a ladder to my balcony. "Aren't you worried someone will see you? It wouldn't be good for your image." Audrey coughed lightly. "I don't care about that." She stared at me, her gaze intense. "I came here to ask you one thing. Why did you marry her? She's just some small-time photographer. How is she possibly good enough for you? Did she use some kind of trick? Did she force you to marry her?" As she spoke, a cold glint appeared in her eyes. "If she forced you, I swear I won't let her get away with it." I gave her an amused look and snorted. "Nobody forced me. I chose this. But she's just a photographer." Audrey insisted, her voice rising. "What do you even see in her? What did Clara have that Audrey Thorne didn't?" She didn't even realize how twisted her expression had become. I shook my head, my voice dripping with disdain. "You did all this research on me. You know she saved my life. Did you ever stop to think about why my life was in danger in the first place?" She stared at me, confused. "Why?" The sneer on my face deepened. "Because I came back to Denver once." Leaving her back then had been an act of pride. It didn't take more than a few months for regret to set in. Life in Port Blossom wasn't easy. The winters were brutal, the wind off the ocean chilling me to the bone. I was alone in a small apartment with no friends or family, and all I did when I wasn't working was stare at the old things she'd given me. Every object held a memory. How could I not miss her? My anger slowly faded, replaced by memories of all the good times. I even started to blame myself. Maybe I was the one who overreacted, who shouldn't have publicly accused her of being too close with Julian. That kind of talk could ruin her reputation. Maybe she had a right to be angry. I convinced myself, rationalized it, and secretly went back to Denver. Walking down the familiar streets, I schemed about how I would play it cool, how I wouldn't let her see how quickly I'd caved. She would have to apologize first, and she'd have to promise to keep her distance from Julian. Lost in my plans, I walked toward her family's house, only to see it decorated with ribbons and flowers, a festive crowd spilling out onto the lawn. I stopped, confused, and asked an old man on the sidewalk what the occasion was. He didn't recognize me, ragged as I was from the drive. "Who else?" he said casually. "The Thorne girl's getting engaged. It's her big day. The whole street's blocked off for the party." I froze on the spot, a roaring in my ears. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It took me a long moment to force out the words. Who? Who is she getting engaged to? Her boyfriend was supposed to be me. Oh, right. I broke up with her. A suffocating pain seized my chest. I couldn't breathe. My mind was stuck on a single thought. Audrey really didn't want me anymore. I had been gone for only 5 months, and she was already engaged to someone else. She had never once tried to find me. Instead, I was the one who came crawling back, hoping to fix things, only to find she no longer needed me. Then I saw her. A lavishly decorated town car pulled up, and she stepped out, reaching back to take the hand of the man emerging from inside. It was the Thorne heiress's engagement. After all, the man was just an accessory. The figure was vaguely familiar. Someone in the crowd sighed admiringly. It's Julian Reed, of course. Who else would it be? I used to imagine my engagement to Audrey. It would be just like this. She'd be in a beautiful dress. I'd be in a suit, feeling a little awkward, but I'd wait for her to take my hand and lead me toward our new life. But when the day finally came, I was just a stranger watching from the sidelines. I didn't have the guts to confront her. I couldn't let her see me, because I was the one who ended it. I was the one who left in a fit of pride. I thought she would chase after me, begging me to come back. Instead, she just replaced me, as if it didn't matter whether I was there or not. With Julian by her side, why would she wait for me? Sticking around any longer would just be humiliating. I turned and fled. On the drive back to Port Blossom, I got into an accident. A car in front of me slammed on its brakes, and I swerved to avoid it, sending my car spinning off the side of a cliff. Clara happened to be at the bottom of that cliff. She was there shooting the coastline and found me in the wreckage. If it wasn't for her, I probably would have died right there, a pathetic, lovesick cliché. Even after a near-death experience, I couldn't shake the despair. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Seeing me wasting away, Clara brought me to her photo studio. People from all walks of life came in every day to have their pictures taken. Some were beaming, others were nervous, but they were all trying to capture a moment worth remembering. Compared to them, my wallowing felt self-indulgent. I spent less than 6 months there before I was too ashamed to sink any lower. Clara didn't just save my body. She pulled me out of the fog of my own grief. She worked tirelessly but never complained, shooting on location all day and coming home to sit with me at night. Even if I was an idiot, I knew I had to repay her kindness. Once I recovered, I stayed on to help her in the studio, organizing equipment and editing photos. Over time, something grew between us. It was mutual, natural, and inevitable. We got married. Then we had Noah, settled down in Port Blossom, and ran into my aunt's family. The ghosts of my past began to surface, one by one, but I wasn't the same Leo Vance anymore. I would never again feel that pull toward Audrey Thorne. My heart would no longer rise and fall with her every word and action. To me now, she was just a stranger on the street. I laid out the whole story for her, wanting her to understand, once and for all, that I had truly, completely moved on. Audrey, we were in love. I loved you more than anything. But that's all in the past. You have Julian, your fiancé, and I have my family, my safe harbor. What's the point of you dragging this out? As I spoke, Audrey's face grew even paler, as if her soul was being siphoned out of her body. You came back to Denver, she whispered. I didn't understand her reaction. I just nodded, and I walked right into your engagement party with Julian. Ms. Thorne, what was our big fight about? Julian, right? What were you hiding from me back then? Julian, right? Now we've gone our separate ways. We're living our own lives. Why can't you just accept that? I laid out the cause and effect as calmly as I could, but her eyes reddened. She shook her head. It's not what you think. Her lips trembled, as if she were holding back a painful secret. She gave a bitter laugh, her expression a mix of sorrow and regret. What if I told you? I was just trying to make you angry? Would you believe me? I froze, a wave of confusion washing over me. Make me angry? What did that mean? Was she trying to say her engagement to Julian was just a game to get back at me? Under my stare, a sad smile touched her lips, and the corners of her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Leo, she said slowly, do you believe that you're the only person I've ever loved? That all I ever wanted was to spend my life with you? Her voice was soft and deep, a confession that had come 5 years too late. I was never ashamed of you, Leo. Maybe other people prefer a man who was calm and serious, sophisticated and stable. But Audrey had only ever been in love with a wild, passionate, energetic boy who was her first love. His name was Leo Vance, and when he turned 25, they were going to get engaged. He never knew how many years his girlfriend had spent dreaming of that day. But that day became a mirage. Life is full of missed connections, of deep love and bad timing. They were so used to their pattern of fighting and making up that they thought their bond was unbreakable, when in reality, it was as fragile as morning dew. Audrey knew her parents preferred Julian, that they had reservations about me. She wasn't blind to the fact that Julian's presence was making my life harder, that more and more people were putting me down. But she told herself it had nothing to do with Julian. He meant no harm. And as for me, I had her. It didn't matter if no one else liked me, as long as she did. She never realized that she, too, was being influenced, that she was slowly pushing me away, that she had, even in a moment of my deepest despair, raised a hand to me. She hadn't hit me hard. She thought it wouldn't hurt that much. But a man doesn't cry from physical pain. He cries when his heart breaks. Audrey told herself not to be weak, that I needed to learn a lesson. Publicly accusing her of having an affair with Julian. She had been too easy on me in the past. She thought she'd let me cool off for a few days, but she never expected the big surprise I had in store for her. When she got my breakup text, her eyes burned with rage. What infuriated her even more was the last line. Audrey, I hope you and Julian have a wonderful life together. Was he being sarcastic? Mocking? Self-deprecating? Her heart was a knot of anger. That, combined with the persuasion of her family and Julian, led her to deliberately ignore me. She was waiting for me to come back, tail between my legs, and apologize. But I just left town and vanished. Audrey almost threw her phone against the wall. Her parents seized the opportunity to bring up her future. Since she was done with that Vance boy, they probed, maybe she should consider Julian. She hesitated. She'd never intended for things to go that far with him. But if Leo heard she was getting engaged, surely that would be enough to make him crack, right? He would come running back to her, begging for forgiveness. And so, in a fit of rage and pride, she agreed. She even posted the engagement photos on Instagram, taking a screenshot of my sarcastic text to keep as a reminder of her anger. But she held on to that anger, waiting. Even a year later, she still hadn't tried to find me. She didn't know I had fled to Port Blossom, that I never even heard about her engagement. All she knew was that I hadn't shown up. She thought I truly hated her, that I couldn't even be bothered to react to the news. So, Audrey Thorne, in an act of self-destruction, got engaged to Julian Reed, gambling on a losing hand. She never knew that I was standing just down the street, watching her take another man's arm. A college romance, a first love, destroyed by pride and misunderstanding, sending two people on paths that would never cross again. On her engagement day, Audrey still held onto a sliver of impossible hope. She even announced in front of all her guests that if Leo Vance came back, she would drop everything to be with him. But I never came back. My own pride took me further away than she could have ever imagined. For years later, her cousin Chloe handed her a wooden box. Inside was the lapel pin, the ring, the old ticket stubs from games we'd seen, the faded photos. She was overcome with emotion, thinking I had finally resurfaced, and eagerly asked where I was. Chloe hesitated, then delivered the final blow. He's married now. It was like a lightning strike, shattering every last one of her illusions. Audrey didn't even notice herself clutching her chest, a sharp, racking cough stealing her breath. A smear of blood appeared on her fingertips. Where is he? She whispered. Port Blossom. The snow started falling again, draping the world in white. After telling me she had never been ashamed of me, she fell into a strange, haunted silence, her expression shifting from shadow to light and back again. Inside, Noah woke up from a bad dream. I went into his room and picked him up, murmuring soothingly. Through the window, Audrey watched me, and her frantic energy seemed to finally drain away. I'm sorry, she said. I've been a disturbance. I was a little surprised. It seemed she was finally giving up. Then I won't see you out, I said coolly. She looked down and nodded. Okay, I'll be going back in a few days. She hesitated for a moment. Can I hold him? My brow furrowed, my posture instantly wary. She rushed to explain. Don't worry. Just like holding a friend's child. Is that okay? As she spoke, she looked at Noah, her eyes filled with a profound longing. If things had been different, would she have ever needed to ask my permission to hold her own child? Noah stared at her, then reached out his small hands. Auntie, hold. He couldn't understand the messy history between the adults. He only sensed her sadness. Audrey's eyes lit up, and she looked at me with a pleading expression. I sighed and passed Noah to her. Careful. You have to support him like this. I showed her how to hold him properly. She gazed at his little face, which, though he was young, already had the same shape of my eyes. She seemed mesmerized, her eyes welling up as a faint smile touched her lips. Noah reached up and touched her cheek. Auntie, why are you crying? Because I failed someone who loved me very much, she whispered. If I hadn't made a mistake, maybe his child and I would be about your age. No, at least 5 months older than you. 5 months. A specific, meaningful amount of time that had now become a permanent, carved-in-stone regret. Is that enough? I said. You've seen him, you've held him. You should go, and stop sending those gifts. I don't want to have to explain to my wife why I have a secret stash of money. She nodded bitterly. I won't. When Clara got home, she found out Audrey had come by and immediately asked if everything was okay. She's gone. It's over. We're done, completely done. I don't believe you, Clara said. I could only offer a weary smile. To be honest, I didn't believe it either. But her family will never let her get involved with me again. Audrey's parents had never liked me. Drowned in the bubble of young love, I never realized how cruel the real world was. Now I understood. If it weren't for them, will my relationship with Audrey have dragged on for so long with no real progress? Not until Julian showed up to drive the final wedge between us. All that gossip elevating him and tearing me down had to have come from somewhere. A deliberate campaign to make me give up. Audrey's parents had certainly worked hard. A cold sneer touched my lips as I pushed the memories of Denver away. I had no idea that when Audrey returned home, she had a massive fight with her family. Citing irreconcilable differences, she broke off her engagement to Julian. He stood on her doorstep, his usual calm, sophisticated demeanor gone, his face red with rage. All these years, was I just a pet to you? Something to play with when you were bored and ignore when you weren't? Audrey, are you even human? In the end, though, Julian left. You can't fight a corporation. Here in Port Blossom, Clara and I built our photography business into something successful. Noah grew up by our side. Another winter came, the snow falling thick and fast. Noah was pressed against the window, looking out. Daddy, he said, I think I see someone I know. I laughed. Don't tell me it's the pretzel guy again. Noah blushed and shook his head. No, this person has really bright eyes. Like the ocean. The description sent an involuntary jolt through me. It could only be Audrey. You must have been seeing things, I said. Maybe, Noah said, uncertain. The snow was so heavy, he couldn't be sure if the eyes were real or just a trick of the light. Seeing him still staring out the window, I sighed. Come on, stop looking. Dinner's ready. The warm scent of food filled the apartment. Outside, the figure in the snow seemed to smile, then turned and walked away. The snow piled high on her umbrella, dusting a face that was no longer young, now traced with fine lines. Only her eyes remained unchanged, as clear and deep as the place where the sea meets the sky.